Hello, I'm Rob Westervelt, editor of IHS Chemical Week, welcoming you to the 31st annual IHS Chemical World Petrochemical Conference. And I'm delighted to be joined this afternoon by Neil Chapman, president of ExxonMobil Chemical. Neil, thanks for joining us.
Sure.
Start with a question. A big theme of the event is operating in an uncertain energy and economic environment. Talk about the economic environment, specifically what's going on in emerging markets. What trends are you seeing there?
To me, the markets have always been volatile.
Yeah.
You know, and right now, of course, some of the emerging markets, the growth rate has softened some.
Yeah.
But what's most important when you're making an investment is really the long-term trends.
Yep.
And when China is not growing as fast as it was, India's growing faster.
Yeah.
Europe wasn't growing for a period, it's growing faster now. North America is still, quite good. So if we look, we always see volatility in the markets. Yeah. Some markets are up, some markets down. But on average, the petrochemical demand grows above GDP. Maybe 1%, maybe it's 4% in total per year growth rate. We've seen that for decades. We don't see any major change now.
Okay.
So we don't see it. And I guess the other point I would make about China, because I know people have been talking about China. I was in China 15, 16 years ago. At that time, the growth rates were double digit, 10, 11% a year. But the market was much smaller. When you've had all the growth over the last 15 years, and China is such a large part of the petrochemical demand and global economy, 5 or 6% growth on today's market, much larger than 10% 15 years ago.
Yep.
So we remain very positive about demand over the long term.
Great. And ExxonMobil has always stressed, no matter what part we are in the cycle, the need to adopt a long-term outlook and strategy. And in this environment, is it even more critical in this environment to stick to a long-term strategy? And if you could just sort of share ExxonMobil's view on how to operate in this environment.
Yeah. It really doesn't matter what the environment is if you're taking that approach. I mean, the way we look at it is this is a capital-intensive business. When we make investments, they tend to be hundreds of millions or billions of dollars, and we expect these facilities to operate well in excess of 40, 50 years. Yep. So we don't build them trying to anticipate the market in 3 years' time.
Yep.
We take a long-term approach. And we go back to the fundamentals. Our investment in Baytown, in the steam cracker and polyethylene facilities in Baytown, were driven by two macro drivers. Number one, we have great confidence in the growth of the global economy and the growth of petrochemical and polyethylene demand. And number two, the United States, North America, sits on a very large hydrocarbon resource base. Yep. And that's really why we built the project. Okay. And when we're making the assessment of the economics on that investment, we look at the full range of scenarios, both on feed and energy costs and on demand, all around the world, and we make a balanced judgment on that investment based on a range of scenarios. Okay. We just don't try and pick what it's going to be.
And have the lower oil environment of the past 18 months, has it changed your view of the durability of the hydrocarbon resource base here?
No, it really has not. It has not. This is within the range of scenarios that we assessed before we decided to go ahead with the investment. Of course, we're an oil company. We like higher oil prices. But this scenario, it's within our range of assessment of scenarios that we assessed. Okay.
And in your presentation at WPC, you spoke a bit about the ExxonMobil toolkit and how it uses it to operate. In this type of environment, what tools are you drawing on to ensure that these investments are successful?
Well, the key with the toolkit is to make sure that at the bottom of the cycle is a robust investment for the shareholder. So how do we get an advantage versus the commodity player who's operating at cash cost at the bottom of the cycle? And for us, it comes in, I think, 4 buckets. First of all, it's on the feedstock area. And our facilities are totally integrated with our existing refinery and chemical plants at Baytown. That gives us an advantage on things like utilities and construction costs, etc. We are not selling commodity products. We're selling performance products which give additional value to the customer, but also they give additional value to us, which gives us a different price, additional margin versus a commodity polyethylene. we have established over the last really 10 years, but I would say most importantly over the last 5 years, a very integrated global supply chain with supply chain expertise that we've brought in, with an enterprise IT system, which allows us to track and optimize our product all across the world, which is extremely important.
Yep.
Extremely important when more trade between regions is taking place. And so those are the three main ones. And then the fourth one is we have been building our commercial and technical organization in the developing economies. So we have people on the ground, and as we discussed earlier, if the growth rate in China isn't as high, we have people in Brazil.
Yeah.
If the growth rate isn't as high in Brazil, we have people in Indonesia. And so we've put a lot of effort into building those four pieces to our toolkit.
Yep.
Feed, product, supply chain, and access to the emerging economy markets.
Great. Neil, thanks very much for joining us today. Enjoyed
Thank you.
it.
Thank you.